If there is anything I have consistently adored about Atlus since discovering Persona 2 in a bargain bin, it's that it is a game company that is consistently trying to make a point. Whether it be something like Catherine or Persona, Atlus's writers will go out of their way to ensure that their games make you think. In Persona 5, you play as a teenager who has been wronged by society by being charged with a crime he didn't commit. A crime he was only convicted of because of the deep pockets of a powerful man. It sets the pace for a story that evolves from a single theme, breaking free from society's oppression. It's a powerful theme, and it is a theme that struck particularly close to my heart, which is why it is so painfully ironic and so frustrating to see Persona talk the talk, but not walk the walk. We all know that in the realm of video games, the sexualization of female characters is to be expected. This is especially true for Japanese RPGs, which is a genre that will create no-nonsense and extremely powerful female soldiers, but clothe them in hysterically ineffective outfits that typically show off their panties. But you would think that with the primary theme of rebelling against and reforming society, Atlus would break the mold and create female characters without cashing in on their sexuality to the fullest extent. And they did not. At all! If you have paid even a fraction of attention to Persona 5's marketing, it's no doubt that Ann would be the first character to come to mind. In a vibrant leather suit with her tits hanging out, stiletto boots, and an overall dominatrix aesthetic, Ann is the most heavily marketed character in the game, even more so than the main character. And for all intents and purposes, she is marketed in the exact same way as C. Catherine from Catherine. Yet, with that said, there was something that I kept in mind while playing Persona 5. Heavy symbolism has always played a role in Atlus's games, especially Persona. To me, Ann's aesthetic was a representation of her sexual freedom as she escaped the clutches of a man who used her sex against her, and the confines imposed on her by her slut-shaming classmates. At first, and I say at first because Ann's body and her discomfort with the male cast lewd gazes they're both kind of a running gag in Persona 5. When they're driving through a desert and Ann is soaked with sweat, the men are all leering at her over her shoulder until she shouts at them. When they're watching fireworks and get caught in the rain, the camera is panning over Ann's legs as she wrings water out from her yukata. Until Makoto points at the male characters who are all conspicuously averting their gaze as Ann looks over her shoulder. Yusuke even blackmails Ann to pose nude for one of his paintings. Morgana is constantly obsessing over her every time he opens his mouth, even in combat, and anytime she was being objectified, it felt like the only options the main character had was to basically disregard her feelings and tell her to get over it. And the entire time this is going on, it's treated like a joke. After spending an entire chapter of Persona 5 criticizing Kamoshida for being a sex-obsessed, abusive, arrogant dirtbag, the rest of the game is spent making a joke out of the sexual harassment Ann receives, and that's usually harassment she receives from her own teammates. And the problems with Persona 5's obsession with sexuality doesn't just stop with Ann. When every female character in the game, including the enemies, is designed with skin-tight clothing that usually accentuates her assets, or no clothing at all, there came a point where I just had to give up some of the respect I held for Atlus. Even the non-Phantom Thieves members, including the sexy punk doctor in a miniskirt and Sai Nishima's cognitive self with all of her dresses plunging lines, are done for one single purpose: to appeal to the lowest common denominator that is the young male's sex drive. This is made even more blatantly apparent in the way Atlus created the possible interactions you can have with the woman in the real world. Because every single woman in this game can be romanced, simultaneously, should you please. The cast is literally waiting around to be romanced by the main character, including your adult doctor, the adult journalist, the childlike shut-in that has no business in getting into the dating world when she has yet to even attend high school, and your adult teacher who dresses up as a maid and is implied to be a prostitute. The only vagina you can't stick it in is the woman who is trying to imprison you. And whether or not you romance these women isn't even based off of how you have been talking to them throughout their routes. There just comes one moment in every one of their routes when they ask you why you've been so kind to them. You can say you love them, or you can say literally anything else. That is what Atlus has determined is what takes to form a relationship, which really isn't that surprising when you think of a particular interview with producer and director Katsuro Hashino, who admitted he has never been able to forge a true friendship with a girl. When he elaborated, it's little more than a notion to him, an idea in the realm of possibility. If you want to romance a male as a chick, then you're shit out of luck, because Hashino also said in another interview that adding a female main character option to the game would have been too difficult. It would have created too much work for the team, and I definitely can understand why, but the issue with that is that Hashino made it very clear that women are only included as a lesser secondary option, or they don't exist at all. As if Atlus is short on frizzy-haired male protagonists. With all of this in mind, I prayed that Atlus would in some way even partially redeem itself with some LGBT representation. If Persona 4 can discuss a character struggling with his own sexual identity, then maybe a game about breaking free of societal norms could expand upon that. Well, they didn't. In Persona 5, Atlus made their outlook on the LGBT population very, very clear. I honestly could have forgiven Atlus for not having an out character in the main lineup, because I understand that LGBT people are a minority, and I understand that Japan isn't quite there yet. But when Atlus introduces two limp-wristed pedophiles who kidnap and nearly rape a high school kid for the sake of comedy, while queerbaiting the fuck out of anyone who spends time with Yusuke or Yuki, I have a problem with it. And then there's the drag queen that employs a high school kid at her stale gay bar in the red light district, which totally isn't shady at all. That is the only representation given to the LGBT community. It's like they took a step forward only to take like 30 back. Now, it is worth noting that Hashino will be leaving the Persona franchise to allow someone else to don the mantle of producer and director. So maybe Persona will have the chance to move forward beyond the confines established by a producer-director that lacks any sense of self-awareness. Maybe the problem isn't the entire team, just the person who happens to be in charge. And it's also worth noting that I really liked playing Persona 5. I have sunk 200 hours into 2 playthroughs, and I've unlocked the majority of the achievements, including defeating the Wardens and defeating the Reaper, without using the flu season cheat. But this has been bothering me for a long time. Persona 5 continues to be heralded as one of the best, if not the best, in the series, and has received an innumerable amount of 10 out of 10 reviews on nearly every outlet. But the game itself is too hypocritical to warrant those ratings. When it came to delivering its own message, it failed miserably. But like I said, this is just something that's been bothering me. I know this isn't something we really talk about on this channel because stuff like JRPGs isn't something I normally discuss, but I just needed to get this off of my chest. This was meant to be a 2-part series with TJ Mack, who I did a 2-part series back in the day for Fatal Frame, but he kind of dropped off the face of the planet, so here we are. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the societal bullshit in Persona 5. If you played the game, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Otherwise, you can find all of my social media as well as my Patreon in the description. Happy on birthday, and remember that Senpai loves you. Bye!